Over now to Keithstone Greaves.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Kelsick. A very good morning to you. Good morning to our listeners here in Anguilla, across the region, and indeed around the world. As we told you yesterday, and we've been telling you for some time now, we've arranged a special interview with the Honorable Independent MP in Antigua and Barbuda, Mr. Asot Michael. We are happy at this time to go live to St. John's, Antigua, and say a very good morning to the Independent MP, Asot Michael. Good morning to you, Mr. Michael.
Yes, sir, Mr. Keithstone, and to your listening audience in Anguilla and across the region. Thank you for having me this morning.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Michael, for joining us, for agreeing to this special interview. I know a lot of folks here in Anguilla and indeed across the region, around the world, are very interested in what you have to say today. Firstly, how are things in Antigua? How are things going post the election, post the January 18th general elections?
Well, I don't think things are going good at all. First of all, let me say that Antigua and Barbuda is broken. And I say broken. And Gaston Brown, the Antigua and Barbuda Labour Party has lost its way. Sir, a leader who does not care about his people, but will not end their growth in the country. There's no debate about it. Our institutions indicate. First of all, our teachers are under severe strain from the violence in schools. The delivery of health care is in need of an injection, and while all this is happening,
Mr. Michael, where did it all go downhill for you and Mr. Brown? I know you were very close. You got along very well. Where did it all change in that special relationship between you two?
Very interesting question, sir. And I was instrumental after we lost the 2004 election. Captain Brown, 37 years old, I was 24. Together, the brothers, the country together, and worked very hard to get Labour Party machinery behind me. In fact, I got an increase of 23%. I defeated the combined opposition of the Anti-Zimbabwe Labour Party, the UPP and the DNA in St. Peter by 668 votes, a margin of 18%. I had victory margins of 1,238 votes, or 34% against Warden Turner of the Labour Party, and 1,535 votes, or 44% against Trevor and Harriet, Peter Reds of the UPP. And I didn't need to pad any voters list. There are a number of new homes that were built in the constituency, one of them known as the Gaston Brown Development up in Payne. And all of those homes, about 78 of them, people live in them and had to be transferred into the St. Peter's constituency because they're now residents, and the law of the country is once you live in the constituency for at least 6 months or more that you have to register or should register in that respective constituency. So the people have spoken in the most emphatic fashion in St. Peter's, and there's no two ways about it. When you juxtapose that, the Gaston Brown, he lost 11% of his support in his constituency in City West. He got the lowest turnout. I think he got 64% of the turnout when the average across the board was about 70%. I got 79% turnout in my constituency. Other constituencies got 80%, and even Barbuda got 80%. But he lost 13% of his support across the country. And you have maybe ask yourself, why? He turned the election into a personal vendetta against me, sir. He boasted how badly I was going to lose. In fact, his poster, Peter Wickham, was up and down the region spreading hate, calling me irrelevant, and even claiming that I had no more than 20% support in St. Peter.
You've also been accused by the Prime Minister of spending millions this was a figure thrown out by the Prime Minister himself on his Point FM radio station, that you spent between $6 and $10 million on winning to win the St. Peter seat. How much money did you spend on this election campaign, Mr. Michael?
Well, that is totally outrageous. I mean, I would like the Prime Minister to come forward and to prove those figures that I spent $6 million. One time he said between 6 to 10, and then he says $6 million. I spent nowhere close to that, sir. And the Prime Minister should really come and prove when he makes statements in the public as the Prime Minister of the country and give hard evidence to substantiate his allegations, as opposed to what he was doing in my constituency. In fact, sir, he was in my constituency most of the time, rather than helping the marginal seats and the Labour Party and the marginal candidate, the campaign, he was up and down in my constituency giving away thousands of dollars daily. He made no bones about it. Of course, I had a proper structure. I had a poster by the name of Don Anderson. I was from Jamaica. I had to buy paraphernalia, which they even denied me to put up some of my billboards, and had the DCA write to me to take them down and threaten to demolish them. After spending monies to construct them and to order them, you have to order paraphernalia, you have to bring in consultants. So I had a proper structure and a proper team. But in terms of spending $6 million, that is so outlandish and outrageous. You know, it's not even worth responding really in any proper way to Gaston Brown. Let him bring the evidence to show.
But the Prime Minister...
Millions of dollars, and he should account where he got those millions of dollars from to spend, and which investors and which business people gave him money to he and his party. They spent a lot of money, and they still did badly.
Yeah. Prime Minister Brown...
About it. 53% of the people in the last election voted against the Labour Party under his leadership. So it's clear that the Labour Party has deteriorated under Gaston Brown, and the country has deteriorated under him. I mean, everything is broken, sir. Water supply is deteriorated under him, Liat has been decimated under him, and citizens' rights have been eroded under him.
Yeah, and Prime Minister Brown insists that the monies he spent pale in comparison to how much you spent. How much did you spend? Give us an idea of how much money did you spend on this last election campaign as an independent candidate in the constituency of St. Peter. Give us an idea.
Not totaled up as yet exactly, so I can't give you an exact figure, but I will spend in terms of my paraphernalia, my manifestos, my T-shirts, all the things you do, your consultants. I would have spent just a little over $1 million US on my campaign. I don't have an exact figure as of today, but nowhere close to $6 million, sir.
The threat by Prime Minister Brown to thump you in the face if you came further into his space. How did that all come about? Give us an idea of what caused the Prime Minister to react to you in that particular way when you visited one of your constituents.
In my constituency, he picked up the phone. He had the audacity. I was at a function, the 50th anniversary, wedding anniversary of one of my constituents and his wife, and he actually picked up the phone. He was not at that particular house at the time. He was at another house, another constituent in his village, and called me and said to me, oh, he's campaigning in my constituency. He's not saying anything bad about me, but I've been very good to him. We're political enemies now for the next few weeks. But after the election, we will reconcile our differences, but he's just giving out some large yes. I said, what do you mean giving out some large? He said, yes. And taking care of your people up here. I said, what are you doing in my constituency, Prime Minister? You should be in your constituency or in other Labour Party constituencies campaigning. So after the function, I drove up to Pierce Village and I saw a large contingent with the Prime Minister, but I actually saw them down the road with Mr. Turner, and I did not know that they were in a particular house where I went by. You'd always to call the lady's house, her name on the radio now, and I went to that house, and then when I approached the house on the veranda, I recognized two of his policemen. I didn't see him because he was actually probably inside of the house, and he came out and he started screaming and get out of his space, and the video is there. He will thump me if I don't get out of his space. It's very shameful for a Prime Minister to behave like that. So, I mean, the whole of Antigua saw it, the whole region saw it, the whole world saw it. It went, viral. And it's a disgrace that a Prime Minister would behave like that. Well, the people answered him, and they answered him very decisively. The people of St. Peter sent a very strong message to Gaston Brown and to everybody else. And this message, we're not going to allow ourselves to be seduced. We're not going to allow ourselves to be induced, bullied, or intimidated. Nor will we allow you to intimidate our candidate and our representative, who we have a long-standing relationship and love for the last 18 years. I've represented them in the Parliament of Antigua and Barbuda. And the people of St. Peter clearly sent a message to tell them we are not going to imprison ourselves with blind support of any one political party. We'll vote as we think fit in our best interests. And that is what they did on election day, sir. This is more than just an act of defiance or dismissal and defeat of Gaston Brown by the people of my constituency. It is all of those things.
Mr. Michael?
It's an act by the people who have now established themselves as the rock upon which the future political dispensation will be built in Antigua and Barbuda.
Mr. Michael, you've been accused, and you can shed some light on this if there's any truth to it. You've been accused or alleged that you've accused senior members of the Labour Party. I'm speaking here of Sir Robin Yearwood, the Attorney General, Cutie Benjamin, and Sir Malwin Joseph of being afraid to stand up to Prime Minister Gaston Brown and oppose him when he's wrong.
It's not that I have been accused of doing so. It's, first of all, I have said publicly that the senior members of the party should have stood up to him a long time ago to stop Gaston Brown in his tracks, his tyrannical behavior. Innocent mothers and innocent young people when they did not want to have themselves vaccinated during COVID. And the way that he sent home civil servants, frontline workers, nurses, doctors, policemen, and took away their salaries for 2 and 3 months because they refused to get vaccinated. Just how he just curses everybody on his radio station every single Saturday. He curses his own colleagues. I mean, he just recently said on his radio program, he accused his colleagues of fudging figures. Means that they're dishonest conduct of falsification, manipulation, and misrepresentation. And that is unbecoming a person seeking the public office. That is what he said. He said they were not putting in the work. And what does not putting in the work means? That means laziness, of low energy, disinterest, and indiscipline. I mean, he also said that his colleagues are fearful of Asot Michael's money. And that means his colleagues are corruptly beholden to an independent member of Parliament. I will do my bidding instead of serving the people without fear or favor. A fundamental requirement of public office. I mean, certain normal human beings, like any leader, who denigrates them in such a vile, savage manner. I mean, he describes his colleagues as a team of little, if any, integrity, void of the capacity of the matter is, and this is my message today, the country clearly voted for government of national unity, representative of the election result, 9-6-1-1 result. But Gaston Brown just won't listen.
Mr. Michael, did you at any time make a phone call to Sir Robin trying to dissuade him from not taking the position of Deputy Speaker of the House of Assembly?
Listen, Sir Robin Yearwood is my personal friend. Sir Robin Yearwood visited my home up to the day before yesterday, and the day before. Sir Robin Yearwood has been coming to my late parents' home before I was born, okay? And I've known Sir Robin Yearwood for most of my adult life, the personal family member of my family. And yes, I've spoken to Robin Yearwood about being a part of a government of national unity instead of a minority government. There's no lie to that. But I've not dissuaded Robin Yearwood to take a position or not to take the Deputy Speaker. This is not about toppling Gaston Brown's government. These are conversations about the best governance option for the country at this particular time. And all I would hope is not just Sir Robin, is that all of them would give careful consideration as to what they can do for their country, as opposed to what their country can do for them. I'm not trying to topple Gaston Brown's leadership. He's doing a great job of toppling himself, all by himself. I mean, come on. I mean, the government of the day is a minority government. 53% of the country, as I said, voted against him. And what this government needs and this country needs is national leadership. It needs a government of national, some kind of national unity. And as I can see it, only the illustrious Sir Robin Yearwood appears to be expendable at this time by Gaston Brown. I mean, can you imagine on the verge of celebrating his golden jubilee in Parliament of Antigua and Barbuda, he kicks down Sir Robin out of cabinet to be Deputy Speaker of the House, and now offers him the chairmanship of statutory corporations that operated under him as a minister. Statutory corporations like APUA, NAMCO, and the Transport Board. Now in his twilight years, Sir Robin is gracefully demoted to report to the minister who has replaced him. I mean, why didn't he put his wife, Miss Maria Brown, who was hardly ever in office in the last term in the previous government? She's promoted to higher ministerial responsibility and given added ministries, added portfolios like the Minister of Public Works. So, you know, it's really a sad situation, and I believe that Gaston Brown's cabinet colleagues know and understand that he's bad for national development in Antigua and Barbuda. And they know and understand very well that the unconscionable, unlawful, and hurtful treatment that he's been meting out to me is totally undemocratic. It's ultra-vires the Antigua and Barbuda Labour Party constitution, or also the constitution of Antigua and Barbuda. And I believe that his colleagues also appreciate my determination to stand up to campaign against what he wanted to do was cancel me from the political life of Antigua and Barbuda, just because I've questioned his wealth.
Yeah.
I questioned his wealth in Parliament, and he now claims himself that he cannot be explained by his legal income. You know, I actually said I had to take the Labour Party to court under the leadership of Gaston Brown on several occasions, and each occasion the court ruled in a manner consistent with my position.
Yeah.
The court has never ruled in favour of the actions of Gaston Brown against me.
What is the basis,
I think that his colleagues know my position has been fully vindicated in the court of law and overwhelmingly supported in the court of public opinion as evidence in decisive election results that I received, sir.
What's the basis on which you've questioned the wealth of Prime Minister Gaston Brown? Prime Minister Brown has said that you want to be in government and that you have ambition to be Prime Minister, and that you are a bitter man, and that the issue surrounding you is one of governance. How do you respond?
Well, I'm not bitter at all. I'm very happy and very content. That's number one. I give God praise every day for, you know, his mercies that he's given me and all what he's bestowed upon me and my family. And I give God praise for the people of St. Peter who have resoundingly stood up to Gaston Brown and sent me back to Parliament. I question his wealth. Yes, I question his wealth. Because when you can have a Prime Minister stand up in Parliament and say in Parliament that before becoming Prime Minister he was worth $30 million and tell the whole country and world that. I mean, how can he justify that? And I know better. The knows better. That Gaston Brown didn't have no $30 million. He didn't even have $3 million to his name in cash. So where did he get all this wealth from? Where did he get all this wealth that he could amass all of these properties and land and brand new spanking mansion at Jolly Beach and, put lands in the name of his son and different companies, and all of a sudden that his family members, his immediate family members, have millions of dollars that they can buy Barnacle Point from Stanford receivers for $4-point-something million US. And, it's unrealistic. I mean, what does a prime minister get? A prime minister gets, I think, about 16 or 17,000 EC dollars a month. I mean, how come he's a multi-millionaire all of a sudden? And because I got up in Parliament and I questioned the wealth, I became public enemy number one for Gaston Brown.
There was a poll,
I had a right to do so.
Yeah. There was a poll, Mr. Michael, that showed a poll in Antigua and Barbuda that was conducted, I don't know by whom, but it showed that you were more popular than Prime Minister Brown. And this apparently, from all reports, or some reports, was the genesis of the cause of that rift between you two.
Excuse me, yes, that is correct. There was a poll that was done by some U.S. pollsters out of Washington, I think about more than probably about a year and a half ago. And that poll, that did show, I don't have the figures here in front of me, that Prime Minister Brown only had, I think, 41% national support in the country, maybe 42%. And they also polled me, unknowing to me, and I had, I think, 54 or 56%. I don't want to quote the wrong figures, but I surely was much more popular than him nationally in the country. But he knows that, even before the poll was done, sir. Even back in the opposition days, when we would walk up the street on a Jubilee morning or Christmas Eve, he would put his hand around me and he would say, even on a Labour Day, our party function Labour Day, he would say, you're more popular than me, I only want to be Prime Minister for 2 terms. After that, I'm going to support you. I always said, listen, I don't live in the heart of expediency, I live in the heart of loyalty. I'm loyal to you, Gaston Brown, and I will do my best to endeavour to make sure you become Prime Minister of this country. And I have no prime ministerial ambition. And I said that to him on more than one occasion. But I believe that he became paranoid. I believe that he realized that most of his colleagues, if not all, in the first convention were against him, supporting the late Celeste Bird for the leadership of the race. The second time around, he had a few of them that I was able to garner support, to support him, like Mr. Max Fernandez and the chairman of the party, Chet Green, and Cutie Benjamin, the Attorney General, and others. But you had Mr. Robin Yearwood and Morgan Joseph, Lennox Weston, Danny Rose, all the stalwarts of the Labour Party who were supporting Lester Bird. And I think that, he after winning and says, well, if this guy could pull this off for me, one day he probably would raise his head in the party. And that's why he wanted to cancel me from the political life of Antigua and Barbuda, and to get me expelled from the Labour Party and bring me before a kangaroo disciplinary tribunal just for going and observe a radio station, which, by the way, I took them to court, and I won that case also. Every single attempt that he made to cancel me out of the Labour Party, and also to get me off of the politics and the political scene and not to run, he failed, and he failed miserably.
Now, Prime Minister Brown, and let me just be upfront and transparent here, that I've reached out to Prime Minister Brown for an interview. We spoke, and we're still in the process of finalizing when that interview will come. But Prime Minister Brown said that he spent $400,000 on the One Nation concert, but you and others have said that it's a lot more than that. What's your thought there?
It is a lot more than that. It is a lot more than that. I mean, the type of artists that he brought, I put on concerts, both to the Labour Party in the past, and what these artists cost, and the tickets and the per diems, and the type of artists that he had, and there's a lot more than $400,000. And the Prime Minister once again should substantiate and give us hard evidence that he only spent $400,000. But he should not be using any taxpayers' monies during an election. Whether it's $100,000, $400,000, $1 million, whatever the figure is. and promoting myself and going up on stage during an election, a few weeks before an election, to score cheap political points in the country. Should not be doing that. I mean, that's really against our electoral laws. That is treating an entertainment and pre-entertainment of that magnitude. It's not right. Really unacceptable.
Mr. Michael, your role now as independent MP, history making for you, the first independent MP in Antigua, even though we've had independent MPs in Barbuda. What is your role now as an independent MP, and how will you vote with the opposition, the rest of the opposition?
Well, first of all, I will always endeavor to be positive, to be constructive, and totally focus on the people's business. You know, I've been in public service for over 25 years, as I said, first as a Minister of Government, and Chief of Staff under Lester Bird, Parliamentary Representative since 2004 for 18 years. So I have a pretty good idea of how things are supposed to work in the Parliament and how best I can engage effectively with members of the Executive and my colleagues in the Legislature to serve the best interests of my constituents and the country. I'll be speaking out on national interest. And, you know, I will be constructive. I'm not going to say that I'm not going to engage both Gaston Brown and Warren Turner. He's the Prime Minister, and I will work both with the government of the day. If I have to vote for a bill that's in the interest, and the government brings a bill or bring bills to Parliament that is in the people's interest, and I agree with the bill, I'll vote with the government. If I disagree with the bill, I will talk out against it. So I don't agree with you that I will necessarily always vote with the opposition. I'm not there to oppose for the sake of opposing. And to be constructive and to be critically constructive, I can say, for example, after ignoring the Labour Party, Parham Harbour, the Labour Party have ignored a very important project for my constituents, which was done by the OAS and commissioned by Lester Bird many years ago. And the Antigua and Barbuda Labour Party candidate put up beautiful, huge billboards and promised he would do something in his empty, substantial 28-page manifesto of images just to deceive the people. But there was not a single mention of the Parham Harbour project in the 136-page election manifesto of the Labour Party. And on this important matter, I'll engage with both Gaston Brown and my opponent, Warren Turner, and given their love and support of St. Peter expressed over and over, and after and during the election campaign. So I work with them to ensure early commencement and timely completion of the Parham Harbour project. But you know, as an independent candidate now, sir, I'm free from any obligation whatsoever to toe any party lines or to be constrained by partisan preferences on issues of national importance. I have the freedom to say what I see, what I feel, and honestly believe, so that things can go right here in Antigua and Barbuda. And one of the things that needs to go right in our national family is the adequate allocation of public resources to meet the needs of all constituencies across Antigua and Barbuda, without fear or favor, affection or ill will. And as someone who has spent significant financial resources on community needs, the government fails or refuses to honor its financial responsibility over the years, I'll be fearless. I'll be relentless in advocating and championing action in and out of Parliament for the change that we so desperately need in my constituency. My constituency has been neglected for many, many years, both under the UPP and under the Labour Party, but more so under the Labour Party administrations. Because the Labour Party has never lost the St. Peter constituency. Has never lost it.
Now, you've also said, Mr. Michael, that the time has come to look at electoral reform. The first past the post system, you've been quoted as saying it's not working in small islands, especially in small constituencies where, for example, you have in some about 1,500 registered voters, in others about 5,000 registered voters. Why do you say this?
Because you have a disparity. I mean, if you look at three of the constituencies, for example, the smaller ones, the Robin constituency, Sir Robin Yearwood, he has a total, I think, of number of electors of 1,876. 1,346 people voted in that constituency. If you look also in the Honorable Melford Nicholas constituency, St. John's City East, you have a total of 2,156 or 1,595 people voted. You look at other constituencies now, where you have St. John's Rural East for registered voters. You have another constituency, 5,540. That's St. John's Rural West, the one that was held by Mr. Baldwin Spencer for many years. You have other constituencies with 4,609. I mean, my own constituency, St. Peter, we know that's one I just quoted, 4,609 persons. And the Commonwealth Secretariat and the Commonwealth reporters have always advocated for many elections now that you have to look at these small constituencies and do some boundary changes. But the Prime Minister does not want to have any boundary changes, does not bring to Parliament. The Boundaries Commission is actually inactive. They just sign off just before the constitutional requirement, no changes. And there are at least 4 seats that need some realignment. And those are the smaller ones of St. Robin Yearwood, the Attorney General, and also Melford Nicholas. And I think the other smaller one here would be, Barbuda. You can do nothing about Barbuda, because those are just the inhabitants that live there. But you have a constituency like St. George that has 5,883. And if it was not first past the post system that we have in Antigua and Barbuda, you would not have had the Labour Party in government today. As I said, 53% of the country voted against the Labour Party. I think that the UPP received 45% of the vote, but 53% voted against the Labour Party. And out of that 53%, I received nearly 5% of the popular vote in the country.
Mr. Michael, you've called for a review of salaries for members of parliament, ministers, separation of powers, and you've also mentioned as well, focus on the question of all elected members, ministers here, being in the cabinet. And you've been quoted as saying that this is not good, because the loyalty of ministers and MPs would be to the Prime Minister. I want you just to expound and explain this a bit more for us.
I think in small societies like Antigua and Barbuda, it's very difficult once you're elected and you're sent to Parliament by your constituents, and then the Prime Minister gives you a job as a cabinet minister. And when things are taken to Parliament and legislature is being passed, then you have to decide whether or not you're going to serve really the people who gave you a job in the first place, and that is your constituents. Or you're going to be towing the party line and towing what your Prime Minister and the Cabinet decides that they want to do. For example, if there's a project that the Cabinet agrees upon, but your constituents don't think is in the interest of their interests. I mean, whose interests are you really serving? I don't think that everyone should be a Cabinet Minister. I really don't think so. I think that you should have a number of backbenchers for checks and balances in the system. And that's how I feel about it. I don't know how it can be done, and how our Constitution can be revamped to have a separation of powers in terms of the legislature and the executive. But I just think off the cuff that it would be a good idea not to have every parliamentarian who wins a seat be given a ministerial job. And you have more backbenchers, so you have proper checks and balances and accountability, and holding the executive to more higher levels of accountability in the Parliament.
Now, Independent MP Michael, you've called on Prime Minister Brown to be more, quote here, statesman-like, and you've mentioned leaders such as former St. Kitts and Nevis Prime Minister Denzil Douglas, Dr. Drew. You've asked why can't your Prime Minister take a page out of the book of Barbados' Prime Minister Mia Amor Motley. You've referenced, and this is a quote here, the dictatorial excesses of one man trampling on the rights of the people. Again, I want you to explain and expound on this for us. What exactly do you mean?
Yes, sir. Well, I mentioned it briefly earlier in the interview. I said during COVID, just to give one example, the manner in which he forced people to get vaccinated, not that I am against vaccinations, but the way that he cursed his people, the way that he spoke down to them, he threatened their jobs, he actually took away their salaries from public servants who refused to get vaccinated. And I got him in Parliament, I remember, back then during COVID, and I said, take a page out of Prime Minister Mia Mottley. Do it in a loving way. Do it in a statesman-like way. Encourage your people. Speak with love in your hearts, not in a dictatorial fashion, not in a tyrannical way, threatening people, tear gassing innocent people because they demonstrated against you, because they did not want to get vaccinated. I just think that, the way that Prime Minister Brown goes about doing business and conducting himself as a Prime Minister is unbecoming of any leader of any civilized country in the Caribbean. You don't have a Prime Minister going on his radio station week in, week out, cursing people, the nastiest manner, calling them all kind of nasty, words, and denigrating people's characters and character assassination. You never heard V.C. Byrd or Lester Byrd or even Baldwin Spencer behave that way. Not Denzel Douglas, not Dr. Jude, not any of the other Caribbean Prime Ministers. One thing for at election time to do that, but to be doing it every single Saturday, not good. Threatening other Prime Ministers also to sue them, and threatening the directors of banks, of ECAB, and not having proper dialogue. Even the late Butch Stewart, how he behaved towards him. I'm not saying that he did not have merit in terms of what Butch Stewart had owed, or the Sanders group of companies in terms of taxes. But you sit down with these people. You talk across the table with them. You don't get up in Parliament and get up on your radio station and curse them and denigrate them to the worst way. It's not becoming of a Prime Minister, not becoming of a statesman. And he's always in a fight with someone. And it doesn't hold well for our country. The country is divided right now. You need healing in this country. He needs to turn down his rhetoric. He needs to reach out, both to UPP, ALP, young, old, everyone, and try to, even the opposition, reach out to them. Reach out to each person and try to heal this country at this time. Not to continue dividing the country. Not right.
Mr. Michael, just before the elections, there was quite a bit made on social media of you going into one of the local banks there and demanding that you be paid all your money. Did you get your money? In fact, we saw it on social media that you did use some choice words as well in demanding that you get all your money. Did you get your money?
Well, it took quite a bit of time and honest interference by the Prime Minister in trying to sabotage not just myself but my family members, and to starve us off from continuing with my campaign. And so I got frustrated with the bank, which I had an excellent relationship prior to that, and it's not no regulatory paperwork that we needed to fill out or anything like that, because we had met all the requirements. So, but that situation has been resolved, thank God. It was very unfortunate that members of the management would follow the dictates of a Prime Minister. The bank is owned nearly 80% by the government of Antigua and Barbuda. And they should be running, even though the government is the majority shareholder, they should run the bank as an independent and not have any political interference whatsoever. But as I said, that situation has been resolved.
Finally, Mr. Michael, independent MP, what's ahead for you in the Antiguan Parliament and even in your own political life? And what are some of the lessons that can be learned for the rest of the Caribbean following the conclusion of a very tense and fiercely fought election campaign in Antigua and Barbuda?
Well, first of all, I'm here to serve. I'm not going anywhere. I'm 53 years old. I believe that I still have a lot in me to serve both my constituents and to serve my country. So I will continue in Parliament as long as the people want me. I'm surely not going to stay there as long as Robin here would. But I am going to just say, that we must protect the fundamental rights and freedoms of every individual in the country and what is enshrined in our Constitution, and to make sure that no one man can dictate and declare that he does not want somebody on his ticket or he does not want somebody to run for the House of Representatives. That is not his call. We operate under the democratic system of governance in the country. And it's not the call of Gaston Brown whether I should continue in politics or I should not continue in politics. I will continue in politics for as long as the good people of St. Peter wants me there. And I believe that St. Peter has been chosen to be the rock on which the revolution against bad leadership and for better governance in Antigua and Barbuda will build. All I will say is the stone that the builder refused, the long-suffering, neglected people of the labor stronghold that is St. Peter's constituency became the head cornerstone on January 18, 2023. So I think that this brave and wise act for the people of St. Peter in defiance and dismissal and defeat of Gaston Brown is the start of a peaceful revolution in this country. But peaceful, I say. And politicians and political parties better understand that, they must always carry the people with them. They are given a job to serve, and that job expires at a certain date, whether you have elections early or not. And you cannot ever forget it is the people who sent you into Parliament and into government. So, notwithstanding the one-seat majority that Gaston Brown has, I think that he's going to have a difficult time if he does not try to reach out and to heal this country. I'm not saying that he's not going to be able to govern the country. And all this nonsense that he's spewing on his radio station, people are going to destabilize the country and destabilize his government. It's total nonsense. People want peace in the country. The election is over. People want to get back to their work and to business people to run their businesses properly and to bring foreign investment and direct foreign investment into this country and to also grow local businesses, not to continue having this divisive type of politics. I mean, he's got to stop blaming everyone else. He blames everybody else for his failures, curses them out, ridicules them, and then he publicly disgraces them while people must maintain their silence, just like Lammers. I mean, he tells his colleagues that anyone who attempts to align with other parliamentarians in the government of national unity will be committing political suicide. But at the same time, he can attempt to influence an opposition MP to cross the floor, he said so on his radio station, to secure his hold and power. And there will be no political suicide involved in that. I mean, come on. This is how dangerously egotistical this man is. It's all about him, sir. Nothing else matters. Nothing else counts. So I just want to say that I will continue to do my very best, put forward my best foot. I've always done it on the Lester Bird, on the previous administrations, and I will continue to serve this country and my people.
Independent Member of Parliament in Antigua and Barbuda, Asot Michael. Mr. Michael, I want to thank you so very much for taking time out to share with us here today on Radio Anguilla. Thank you so very much for your time, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you for your audience. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so very much.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. So there you had it from the Independent MP, Asot Michael in Antigua and Barbuda. And again, we want to thank Mr. Michael for his time. As I indicated, we've also reached out to the Honorable Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda, Gaston Brown. We spoke briefly on the phone, and arrangements continue for a time when he'll make himself available for a similar interview. Thank you so very much for listening. Bye-bye.